Hi, everyone. We're about to kick off the next session of the eTail Digital Summit. For those just joining us, welcome, and for those who were here for earlier sessions, thanks for staying. We're excited to have you all here. In case you didn't catch our review of the logistics of the webinar platform, I'm going to go over that real quick. All of those windows you can see on your screen can be repositioned and maximized or minimized to fit the device you're using to connect with us today. If you accidentally minimize a window, don't worry about it. Just pop into the toolbar at the bottom of your screen to bring it back up. On that same toolbar, you'll find the Resource Center. Specifically, one of the documents you can find is related to this presentation. It's the 2019 Retail Benchmark Survey by Lucidworks, so please download that and take a look. In that center, you can access documents related to this webinar content as well as important information about the upcoming eTail events. In addition, we welcome you to submit questions throughout the presentation. You can do so through that Q&A portal, also on your toolbar. Now, it's my pleasure to welcome Diane Burley, VP of Content at Lucidworks, who will walk us through why retail struggle with performance, targeted personalization, and product availability. Take it away, Diane.
Thanks, Jackie. As a former journalist, blogger, and now running an editorial team for Lucidworks, I'm always interested in the effort that others are putting into our craft. So I look at blogging best practices as a guidepost, and I can go, oh, yes, others are putting blogs through more than one editor, or yes, the blog is taking upwards of 6 hours to create. All of you listening are putting endless pressure on yourselves to create the perfect shopping experience for customers, because you know shoppers are going to punish your brand if you don't, mainly by jumping to another site. But as you strive for perfection, what is it that's aspirational versus what's realistic? And what are other brands doing? As our company powers so many large sites with our AI-powered search platform, including 4 of the 5 top home improvement stores, we get asked a lot, what are the best practices? So about 6 months ago, we started down the path of looking to create this survey. We did it in conjunction with the retail publishers. We felt that would assist both from a methodology and credibility standpoint. We also wanted to make sure that the survey was fairly brief, 4 to 5 minutes to fill out. This being our first year, we narrowed our scope and used a floor of $100 million in revenue in order to qualify, and we had 123 survey respondents. We wanted to see what the key concerns were during times of peak demand, like Black Friday, Christmas, going back to school. So I'm happy to present the results from that survey. Not surprisingly, making sure the site stayed up and didn't degrade was key for nearly 3/4 of respondents. Stockouts followed at 69%, and that makes good sense, as research will show that as much as 24% of Amazon's retail sales is actually attributed to customers who first tried to purchase an item elsewhere, couldn't find what they were looking for, it was out of stock, and they jumped. The next answer actually surprised us. We asked the length of time it takes from time of ingestion to indexing so that customers can find it. It's only instantaneous for about 20% of respondents. Roughly 25% said a couple hours, while 45% it could take up to 24 hours, and 8% admitted it was even longer than that. We wanted to take a closer look. We found that companies doing more than $400 million in revenue struggled the most. Now, the technology does exist that can make sure as soon as you ingest it, you can find it. So we don't know the exact reason why the larger companies are struggling so much. Our best guess is they're struggling with large catalogs and clusters that are not in sync. Suffice it to say, some of their brethren have figured it out. I wanted to take a moment to talk about the importance of being able to find things. It's not just that people will jump to another site. 30% of visitors start their website visit by using the search box. 80% of those visitors, 24% of all website visitors, abandon websites due to poor search experience. So when a website search is used, conversion rates average 4.63% instead of 2.77%. That's a huge jump. So if it's not indexed, guess what? They're not going to be able to buy it. Speaking of conversion rates, let's look at some metrics. The majority of shoppers, 60%, visit a site up to 4 times before making a purchase. That leaves 40% making 5 visits or more before they finally buy. How many times has a visitor viewed a particular product? How expensive is the item? Are they a long-time customer? Does their search history show multiple searches for similar items, or did they go straight for this one? Using the power of AI to provide more targeted search results and recommendations can help move customers along the shopping journey effectively. And if you use these results, you can figure out, how does this apply to your customers? Since we're talking about the importance of search, click-through rate averages are not bad. The largest group, 42%, have a click-through rate of 16 to 25%, and almost a third, 31%, say their average is above that. That's pretty good. We also looked at, we broke it down by revenue. And we asked, what were the add to cart percentages? And they're generally quite good as well, with 47% of retailers saying their add to cart is between 10 to 15%, and another 28, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around here. Between 10 to 15%, another 28%, averaging 5 to 10%. Almost one quarter, 23%, say their add to cart is in the top tier at more than 15%, which we... Research after research shows that shoppers hate irrelevant search results. So we wanted to take a close look at personalization, because that's the only way really to solve the irrelevant search problem. So we asked the question of our retailers, how well do you predict intent? Now, we got an answer of 4. It looks a little funny on the screen. With the question of 1 to 5, how well do you predict intent? Now, we're not sure if they didn't understand that 1 was worst, 5 was best, or whether they really thought that they're doing such a great job. But when we got a little bit specific, we started questioning whether or not really are they predicting search that well. So right off the bat, we see that 14% they don't even predict any intent. So we're really questioning that 4, right? 38% are trying to do so with rules, and only 48% with AI. Again, we look more closely at the data, and although the colors have changed, we don't see the green, it's the dark red on the far left-hand side is the one that we're looking at that don't use any intent. And we're finding that indeed that the folks that have the largest 400 million in revenue or more are using the most with AI. We also dug a little bit deeper into defining what we mean by personalization by looking at the different capabilities. So how are customers specifying types or categories of products they want to view? And 73% are saying they're doing that. 69% that they are showing recommendations based on similar customers' activity. 68% say they're looking at customer feedback signals. 65% say that they're creating customer product wish lists, and 28% say that they have a digital personal shopper. So we find that those results were pretty interesting. What we're trying to figure out is whether or not they're using rules-based or machine learning-based, and I'll go into that in a little bit, why that's important. We then asked about A/B testing, and virtually everybody says that they are doing A/B testing, but the question is, how often are they doing A/B testing? Is it once in a while? Are they running thousands of experiments? It gets really difficult if you're using rules-based, or when you are doing A/B testing, if you then have to go and convert your machine learning models, your offline machine learning models, and then having to create a rule in the search engine itself. We wanted to know how people use AI and ML to power their customer experience, and 59% said that they do document classification that way. what category does something fall under? That's what we mean by that. 56% are saying that they do product recommendation. Now, this is interesting. 52% are saying they are using some form of NLP to detect phrases and parts of speech. That becomes even more important as people are looking at ways to interact with the search bar, right? People used to search by saying, hey, I'm looking for a skirt and I want it in this size. And now we're speaking naturally. And I think really that Siri and the Amazon have taught us how to do that, right? We just yell over to the computer, hey, show me all the skirts in size, in my size. It's also red that I can wear to a formal party. And so our questions are becoming more complicated, and we aren't using what we would call more Boolean-like search. Are you doing query intent detection of any sort? Anomaly detection. So what we mean by these is when a person, let's say you type in the word iPad, IPDA, because you typed it wrong, does the machine know automatically, does your search know automatically to change that query, to rewrite the query to IPAD? Or let's say that, do they know that an iPad is also a tablet? Do they know that iOS is also a smartphone? So this is the type of query detection that we're talking about, classification detection, and anomaly detection that we're doing. So as we see people and the numbers get smaller in the number of folks that are actually doing it, we really have to question whether or not they can truly be creating that personalized experience like I mentioned earlier. So let's look at all the ways that you can use AI and ML to power this customer experience, breaking it down by revenue. And we really don't see a lot of big changes here. Everybody's using it for document classification in pretty much the same amounts. Where I think we see a big difference is the query intent detection. And these are folks that are spending time to do these query rewrites and looking at synonyms. Now, one of the ways that that's done today, and we didn't get into this in the survey because, again, we were looking to make sure that it was brief enough to not turn people off. And we figured this is our baseline. This is in our inaugural. We plan on doing this every year. We can get a little bit deeper next year with these. So I would love feedback from those of you out there on how we might be able to better phrase these questions or some of the granularity we might want to be looking at. But one of the things that we're thinking of when we're posing this question is, are you using automatic synonym detection, or are you actually going through and the log files looking to see when you find a query rewrite? Are you looking to see all the different ways that somebody might be describing that product? Now remember, if people are having to rewrite the query multiple times, there's a chance you're losing them. So that's when people are going to that search bar. If they automatically come up with, no, we don't have any IPDAs out there, are they running at that moment? Are they taking the time to rewrite the query? So if you can see that if you can immediately jump to what a person was intending to write, you'd be able to keep them on your site. So besides your product catalogs, what other data sources are integrated into your stack? We thought this question was really important, and we thought about it more too in conjunction with that, one of those first answers up front where people were really worried about out of stock. So the first thing that we noticed is that people are bringing in their loyalty system. They want to know, what have you purchased in the past, or are you a good customer? Maybe it's as finite as that. We don't know to the degree to how they're bringing in that loyalty data. Point of sale data is obviously important, and is this point of sale data across all the different channels that the person is going to? And again, I'm going to interrupt here for a second and remind you that the user experience should remain constant no matter the channel that they're going through. So whether they're in the store or on your site, it should be similar. So a lot of times we think about this as only on the e-commerce side, but we want to also remember that when a person goes into the store, can they find, and I know when I go into the store, they'll say, are you a loyalty customer? And I'll say, yes. And then they go, what's your email? I give them my email and they can't find it. They say, well, have you lived in multiple locations? So after 15 minutes of trying to search through using phone numbers and different emails and so on, we finally find it. That becomes one of those experiences that are frustrating, not only for the customer, but obviously for your employees as well. ERP systems, right? Being able to know that the product might not be at this store, might be at another store, or if you've got a site that says, would you like to do an in-store pickup? So having the ERP connected to the stack is really, really important, and only 40% of customers are doing that. And again, we want to make sure that the person's experience is such that, hey, I want it now. I don't want to wait for you to send it to me. So if you've got a retail outlet and it's nearby, why not deflect them over there so they can go pick it up if they'd like to? And then finally, we asked this question about GIS, which is that's just basically knowing that if a person lives in a certain zip code, where they are geographically, right? So we know a little bit about the customer. They've logged in. They've given us our zip code. If you don't have the basic ability to look at inventory in this way, then you may be missing out on an opportunity to be promoting products that, let's say, I'm in the Northeast, we're starting to go into fall, I'm probably not looking at bathing suits, or I'm in New Jersey and maybe I'm a New Jersey Devils fan or a New York Giants fan. I probably don't want to see things that are coming from San Francisco. So having that ability to at least have that little bit of localization and personalization, which we would normally count as being just on the basic steps of personalization, is really key. So I've been talking a little bit about what people are doing out there. Let me just tell you a little bit about why Lucidworks was so interested in what we do. We produce a digital commerce platform called Fusion, and Fusion is a search engine that was built using solar, and we've fortified it with machine learning. We use Spark, another open source tool for that. And what that allows is that your data scientists, you can either use our machine learning or you can use your own machine learning. You have invested in great data scientists, so you might as well be using your own algorithms and models. So what we do is it allows you, by using this combination of really rich search fortified with machine learning, is to be able to do real-time personalized relevant search results. We have, like I said, production-ready machine learning for discovery, and this machine intelligence at scale. And as you know, solar scales quite well, so you don't have to worry about ingesting product today and taking it 24 hours or more for it to actually be indexable. So these are the different types of system data that might be, or data that might be incorporated into a traditional or a typical infrastructure. You've got system-generated data, which is the information that is coming off the system itself. What are people, when are they leaving the site? What is the different log files and so on that we're putting in there? There's human-generated content, might be reviews. I love this. I hate that. It could be application specific. So you are bringing in information that might be from the different point of sale tools that you're using. Why is this important? Well, by indexing all of this different type of content, you now can start with machine learning to build facets and clusters. We did another survey some time ago where we asked data scientists what the biggest problem was to incorporating AI or machine learning within their organizations, and they said unlabeled data, badly labeled data, unclean data, so it all centered around that. What you do with clustering, and you create these models that start to sift through and say, we don't know what it is you were looking for from the specific SKU per se, but the machine sees it as data clustering together. So we start to get a sense that, hey, if you're looking for skirts, and these are all the things that you were looking at, possibly they are all skirts. So again, you want to do some testing behind the scenes to make sure, but that's where you're training your models to say, yeah, that indeed is what they were looking for, and it is all relevant. We also do query rule matching, right? This is where a person is looking at intent, is looking for something, and we're doing an analysis of what it is they were looking for, what they eventually clicked on, and how we might be able to better help that experience, and on and on. And again, as I said before, the natural language is really important. What is really key, I think, for our system with many of the retailers out there is that the merchandisers have the ability to override the machine learning. What you don't want is the machine setting your trends for you. You've invested in merchandisers who are degreed in fashion and trends and people and anthropology and all the different ways they bring their skill sets together. They should have the final word of what should be promoted. And we make sure that they can have that merchandiser override at any point. There's a tool here. We go into looking at user signals. It's a number of form of data that we think is really, really important, and that is looking at what people click on and what people don't. So Fusion is probably built with open source Apache Solr and Spark. We provide this hyper-personalized shopping applied with machine learning. And what we do is provide these better outcomes of increased add to cart, improved average order value, and we boost the click-through rate. So when a person does the search, they're finding what they look for, and it is indeed really important to them. So we've created the survey. We're really excited about it. As I said before, it was a first for us, but not a last. We're planning on doing this every year. And we are hopeful that you will find as much great information out of it and that you will interact with it and tell us how we can make this even better for next year. We also intend to go beyond just servicing or including people that have accounts of 100 million in revenue or more, as well as looking to expand beyond physical products to digital services and goods like tickets, subscriptions, and things like that, where we know they might be at much lower price points because the margins are so much higher. But I hope that this has provided enough basic information to get you curious and want to take a look at the survey and see how you measure up to your brethren that are out there. Jackie, I think there might be some time for some questions.
Yeah, we certainly do have time. Thanks so much, Diane. We did have a couple come in here. Here's our first one. Can you expand on what are signals?
Oh, yes, of course. So the signal capture, this is really, really critical. Signal capture takes a look at, it's the log files that take a look at what people are clicking on, what they're not clicking on. So let's say you do a search for a red jacket, and you type in red jacket, and you get a whole bunch, and we've all seen this, right, where you go onto a site, and instead of seeing just red jackets, and you're a woman, which they should know, by the way, when you log in, you are looking at men's jackets, children's jackets. You may be seeing things that are red. You may be seeing things that are jackets. They don't necessarily refine exactly to what you were looking for. So you could get aggravated that you have to go out 5 pages to finally find the right red jacket. Or the machine starts to learn that, hey, I didn't click on the red lipstick, and I didn't click on the red hat, and I didn't click on all these other things that are not relevant to my search. So it starts to learn me by looking at and learning not only the signals that I'm putting forth, but the signals of others that are like me in their own unique cohort. So signals are, again, what they click on, what they don't click on, how far down the order before they do click on something, basically things like that. If they've rekeyed the query, we look at maybe they typed something wrong. Did they retype it? Did they call it a skirt? Or did they type in shorts and they ended up with nothing? So they go back in and they start to refine the query with synonyms perhaps. So all of those things we would classify as signals.
Great, thanks so much for that clarification. We've got one more question here, and I think we'll close out afterwards. It's, why is search such a challenge for retailers?
That is really a great question, and I sort of intimated it a little bit about, you know, why people are having such a difficult time. First of all, we don't all search the same way, right? That's the biggest problem. We go into a site and we want to type in more and more so now with natural language processing. We want to type how we're actually thinking. So we don't want to be thinking in terms of the categories that the retailer might be thinking of. So I'm trying to think of the last thing that I just recently searched for where I was really, really frustrated. You might go into a site and look for short pants. Are they giving me shorts? Are they giving me pants? Did they understand what it was that I'm looking for? Or short, I'm trying to think of other things that might be short. Pants that are for short women. Maybe that's where the description is coming up. And if I'm 5'8", I don't want to see things that are for short women. So, and part of the problem is, too, I've talked to a number of different merchandisers. The data that they get from the manufacturers can be very, very, very limited. So let's say they're a jean manufacturer and it's coming into a major retailer. The brand is looking at what comes in, and maybe it only says that it's jeans and that it's made of denim and that it's, and these are the sizes. So if that's all the descriptive material out there, how are people going to necessarily find it? And especially, people want to search by color. I used to own an online high-end design site, and I couldn't believe the amount of people that were looking for specific things like a blue sofa, a modern blue sofa. I started having to add all the different colors that were available. And of course, with many of these manufacturers, you can do bespoke. So that became even more cumbersome. So then you're making a decision. Well, do I include everything? If colors can be in multiple types, do I say yes, include it? We call that an implied search. So instead of eliminating things because it doesn't specifically call out blue, I add it in. Is this making too much data for the person when they're going to search? Does it make it irrelevant? Or on the other hand, do I have too little? So it's sort of like Goldilocks, right? You don't want too much in terms of results because then people get turned off. But gosh, you don't want that null sign because that's the kiss of death. We don't have anything that you're looking for. It basically sends a message, go home, go away, leave us alone, and go shop somewhere else.
Great, thank you so much for that. I think that actually brings us to the top of this session. Thank you so much, Diane, for your time and for taking us through that presentation and for all of your insight. We really appreciate listening to it, and I know that our audience is very excited about it as well. If everyone here is still on the line, thank you all to the audience for joining us. We'll be starting our next session in just a few moments, so please do not go away. It's going to be a great one. Have a good one.